why we would remove the analog headphone jack from the iPhone. But it really comes down to one word: courage. The courage to move on, do something new that betters all of us.
Stupidity. The stupidity to remove the headphone jack and replace it with Bluetooth, which sounds worse by default because no matter what, it compresses the audio. So anyways, let's talk about real courage here, not Apple's fake courage. But let's talk about Apple though. And let's talk about the courage to make a touchscreen Mac laptop. I mean, not iPad, not iPhone. Why did they never do it? No idea. My guess is it would cost a bunch to make the software touchscreen compatible, and it would increase the cost of the laptops as well. Laptops that are already premium in terms of price for sure, but not really quality. And I can prove that to you right here, because this, I don't know if you can see it very well, is a Dell E7480 running, let's see here, Mac Big Sur 11.6.2 with a touchscreen. It's not on any desk. Actually, if it were on any desk, when you go to the top, you would see the AnyDesk menu. It's not. I do have AnyDesk installed on here, but it's not connected to anything whatsoever. And yeah, it is absolutely hands down a touchscreen Mac laptop, but in a Dell. This one, again, is a Latitude E7480. Sorry. The touchscreen's not perfect, but also it's, you know, a Hackintosh. But it works pretty darn good, and just takes a little bit of kind of getting used to, because it's not quite as good as like a tablet would be. But this is an E7480, a Latitude. It's got Core i5 7500U dual core with 4 threads. I think it's 2.7 to like 3.5 gigahertz or something like that. Right now it has 8 gigs of memory. I intend to bump that up to 16. Right now it's got a 128 gig SATA drive because I had one laying around, so that's what I used to install Mac. But I've also got a 256 gig NVMe drive for Windows and Linux. And that's what's really awesome about these Dell Latitudes, that you can run anything on them because they're kind of plain, actually. I've showed you in past videos the other Dell Latitude that I have and how awesome that one is, and how I can run Mac, Windows, and Linux all on the same machine. That one's 4 or 5 years older than this is. And this is 4 or 5 years old as well. It's new to me. Thanks, Mom and Dad, by the way, for the Christmas gift. But the reasons I wanted it were to try Mac and to use it as a Linux development laptop that I can take to the cafe and work on and bring it back, and something that's still quick and has a battery that works. So how did I do it? First off, you got to get whatever version of Mac you want. And here you can see the website for where to download it. Now, if you already have a Mac, you can use this. Basically, I got a MacOS Big Sur, by the way, but you can click on, you can click on this right here, MacOS Big Sur. And then if this were a Mac, you would see the button there to open up the App Store, and you can download it that way onto a Mac. So I did that with the different Mac that I have that's running 10.12 and different Hackintosh. You can download this with Windows or Linux as well, but you'll have to find a different link. It won't work through the App Store, obviously. If you know someone who has a Mac, you can ask them to download it for you. And then what you do is take a thumb drive, and you'll want to come here to the OpenCore website. If you just type in OpenCore install guide in Google, you'll find it. But basically, for the 7480, there's already a set of driver files and what are called EFI files, extensible firmware interface. The files that are needed to make that compatible with macOS are already available. They're here. If you search for lovely XPP Latitude E7480 Hackintosh, you'll find this, and you can download the OpenCore files, the EFI files. What you need to do is take Big Sur, or if you want to use a different version, you can use a different version, but Big Sur 11.6.1 works well. And I've used I actually started with 11.2.3 and then updated it after the installation to 11.6.1 flawlessly, 0 problems. Everything works on it, by the way. It'll sleep without an issue. I haven't tried to hibernate, but I don't think I'll ever use that. I never do anyways, but it'll sleep without a problem and it'll wake from sleep. Wi-Fi works, even though it's Intel wireless. The touchscreen works, obviously. The touchpad works. I've got an external mouse that's also connected to it. Screen brightness works, volume works, sound works. I haven't tried HDMI, but from what I understand, I believe it does work, actually. I usually don't use HDMI with laptops, but if I do a presentation or something, then I might. So I may test at some point, but everything that I've tried on it works perfectly fine with a combination of these files and macOS Big Sur using the OpenCore guide. So going back to the USB drive, you get a USB drive, download Big Sur, pop it into the Mac. There are instructions here for making the installer. And again, you can make the installer with Windows or Linux as well. I did it in Mac because fewer issues. And that's what I would recommend if you have access to a Mac. Anything that's OS 10.10 or above, I'm sure would work without a problem. I believe would work without a problem. Also, they show you how to download it here as well. But after you've plugged in the USB drive, you will, let me see, make sure that the macOS Big Sur is in the Mac's applications folder, the Mac that you're using to download it. Make sure that it's in that Mac's application folder. Download it. You'll want to open up the disk utility and erase the disk with these settings. So name it My Volume, capital M, capital V, no space, macOS Extended Journaled GUID partition map. And then you'll run this right here, this little shell script in terminal. To find disk utility in terminal on the Mac that you're using to create this media, you'll open up applications and then go to utilities. It's near the end because it's alphabetical. And you'll find terminal and disk utility in there. So you use disk utility to do this part. You use terminal to do this part. It'll ask for your password. That takes, I don't know, I think it took maybe a half an hour, maybe a little longer, a little less time. I actually did it on 2 separate computers. So I think in the one case it only took like 20 minutes, but in the other case it took like 45. That will put the image onto the flash disk, right? And then what you'll do is use this Mount EFI program, and it gives you instructions here to open up the EFI partition of that USB drive, of that flash disk. And then you'll copy these files, the EFI files, into that. And then all you've got to do is set your Dell E7480 to boot from USB. Make sure that there's nothing on that disk. And then you just install it like normal. Make sure there's nothing on the hard drive, because you will lose it. You'll overwrite it. I had a fresh 128 gig SATA disk, so it was no big deal for me. But install the USB drive, boot from USB drive, and what did I have to do? The first thing you should do when that opens up, I had to change the language, which is the third file menu over, because it was in Korean or Japanese or something like that. I'm not sure, some Asian language. Click on the third menu item, and there's one box there that's language. Click that, you can change it to English if it's not in English already. And then run the disk utility on the drive that's in the machine. And again, format it just like you did here. Format it to, I named it macOS, and you'll want to make it APFS for this one, I believe. Although I don't think it matters. It might automatically do that. Format it to APFS, and if you get an error message, you'll know it anyways. But name it whatever you want to name it. I named mine macOS. Format it to APFS and GUID partition map. This should be set up to boot from EFI. And then it'll start to install it from there. And it runs through the whole install. It will restart, I think 3 or 4 times total. And when it's restarting, you have to keep the USB flash disk in there. It'll boot back up to the EFI menu. The OpenCore bootloader, which looks like this. Now this one has a couple of extra operating systems on there, but it won't just say macOS or the name of the drive. It will say macOS and installer the first time it reboots, and actually the second, third, maybe even 4th time. You have to keep clicking installer. You'll know when it's installed because it'll reboot and it'll open up to the setup screen to where you choose your language and you make your username and you choose Time Machine Backup and all that stuff. After that, you've got a working Mac. The only thing is your EFI partition won't be set up to boot from the disk itself. It'll always have to have that USB drive in there. So after you've got it installed, you've got it on the hard drive, and I think it actually mentions it in here. Let me see if I can find it. Post-install issues. It might be here. Boot issues. I forget exactly where this one is. So in order to make it boot without having the USB drive in there, once you've got it all installed, you'll want to run that mount EFI command again. But this time, instead of putting the EFI files onto the flash disk, you'll put the EFI files onto your main hard disk and the EFI partition on that hard disk. And literally, I did nothing with these. I didn't change, I take that back. I did change one thing. In order to get the Intel wireless to work, when you open up that EFI folder, I deleted config.plist and replaced it. There's a second plist in there that you had to rename to config plist. So essentially you're replacing this one with this one, but they're both there. So delete the one, rename the other one to config.plist, and then your Intel wireless will work without a problem. And again, copy all of that over to the EFI folder, the EFI partition that's on the main drive on the macOS installation, not the thumb drive. And then when you reboot, you can take the thumb drive out. It boots to Apple without a problem. I'll show you what I mean. And again, you'll have working touchscreen, trackpad. Actually, I don't know if this nubbin thing works. Yeah, it does. Even the little joystick thing in the middle of the Dell, like the old ThinkPads, works too. This is a SATA drive instead of NVMe, so it's a little bit slow because it's a SATA drive, but it still works perfectly fine. If I can get a decent price on an NVMe drive, I'll get it and I'll swap this out for that. Apart from that, like I said, I want to go to 16 gigabytes of memory. This has just regular Intel graphics, 7500U CPU, so I think the Intel graphics are like HD 530 or 630 or 520 or 620, something like that. Fully supported by macOS. This, in my opinion, is much more courage than getting rid of a headphone. So Apple got rid of the headphone to save pennies. They save literally, maybe 5, 10, 15 cents per phone, but when they're shipping tens of millions of phones, that adds up. They didn't do it for you, the consumer. They did it to save themselves money. They're not putting these on there because they'd have to rewrite the software to really make it effective. And because they know that it would increase the price on an already premium product. Both of those things suck. The reason they went to the M1 chip rather than using Intel was to save money. It wasn't to give you an improved experience. It wasn't to make it faster or anything like that. It was to save money and to have more control over the process. Everything Apple does is only about money. That's it. But you don't have to buy their crap hardware when you can use a regular Dell E7480, which are inexpensive compared to other laptops. Let's see. We'll have a quick look at eBay and see what they're going for. And you can actually get them with Core i7s, I think Core i3s as well. Here's the i7 6600U. Again, mine's the 7 series, 7500U. 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD. That one's 500. That one's from Australia. These are i7 models, so these are a little bit pricier, but still great. E7480, 6600U, 16 gigabyte RAM spots, which tells me that there's no memory in there. I don't know why that one's so inexpensive. It's not buy only. This one's being bid, so that'll get bid up, I'm sure. Let's see. Let me see if we can. By the way, mine's 1920 by 1080 touchscreen. Works great. I wish I had the 2560 by 1440. I might change the screen at some point. Still with a touchscreen, but at 1440p, and that would be nice. That would be awesome. But not at the moment. Let's see. i7, i5, i7. So again, mine is an i5, but it's a 7th gen. Let's see what happens if we do not specified. There are a bunch of these in here, and these prices are a bit high. So here's a 2.5 gigahertz. This is 6th gen, but that's fine. 8 gigs of memory, 256 gig. IPS LTE 1920 by 1080. I think by LTE they must mean touch. 305. That's a decent price. Here we go. 5600U. That's a 5450, not a 7480. So that one's a little bit different. i5 6th gen, 2.5. So mine's the i5 but 7th gen, and I think it's 2.7 gigahertz. I'm not seeing one of those in here though, but I'm sure that they're here. Anyways, these laptops are a dime a dozen. You can find them in decent shape, obviously. Get whatever processor you want to get in it and whatever memory you want to get in it. And you can put Mac on it, you can put Windows on it, you can put Linux on it, you can put whatever you want to on it. There are a bunch of niceties to it too. It's got a card reader in the side that I believe works on Mac, though I haven't tried it. It's got HDMI out. You can get ones with an express card slot. You can change the memory, but not the processor or the graphics. You can change the SATA SSD or NVMe SSD. You can go either or. And it's PCI Express 3 with 4 full lanes if you go with an NVMe drive. If you go with SATA drive, obviously it's SATA, and they're 80 millimeter. It's an 80 millimeter slot in the back of this, which I may do a different video where I open it up and show you. Now here's one that's like a 5490, but this is the 8th gen. So I think this one must be newer, but still $400 with 90 for shipping is not a bad price. That one would probably work as well, though you might need different EFI files for that. If you've got one of these laying around and you want to try out macOS, don't waste your money on their trash hardware. Unless you're really going to go all out and buy a brand new M1, in which case, it's up to you. They're certainly faster than this. Personally, I would not, though, when you can buy this. If you're a bit handy with a computer, you can put macOS on it yourself, customize it yourself. Works really well. So anyways, hopefully y'all enjoy this. Again, if you do buy that M1 Mac, you're not going to get a touchscreen. So that was really the point I was trying to make here. Anyways, enjoy.